Hi everybody, this is Ron with another Kerbal Space Program video. Today we're going to be looking at VTOLs. So my first video was about VTOLs, but those were real, just straight up and down flight VTOLs. I wanted to do something more like a Harrier, something that is a good, solid plane that can also hover and land. So of course, the first thing I did when I was looking into designs is I went onto YouTube and see who I could rip off. First person I found with a cool design was Cruzan AK. This is my version of Cruzan AK's plane. It shares a lot of similarities. Like for example, using structural components to mount it onto the side. He uses girders. I like these plates better. They're lower mass and they let you just basically stick an engine on anywhere. They're not cross-feed capable, so you do have to hose them. And I really love this plane. This one flies great in a straight line. I mean, in plane mode, with just the back engine pushing. It is fast, it's maneuverable, hovers great. It's me, of course, so I put in the little control rockets. I can pretty much land this thing anywhere. It's really good. What I wanted to improve upon, though, was, in the name of symmetry, we're putting two huge engines on there, which have to be limited way down for them to hover, and it's just mass we don't need to have. So I kept looking, and of course the second YouTuber that I ran into making VTOLs was Cupcake. Cupcake has a bunch of very interesting designs, of which elements I stole yet again. One of the things I liked was his are all single engine, for the most part, and he's the only other person I've ever seen use the rockets to control the flight. Of course, he works them into the central engine somehow, which I haven't been able to figure out. You can just see like the rockets firing from within the jet. But his approach, which was very interesting, is he puts fuselage components that lower the center of gravity and where the landing gear can be attached below where the central engine is. This gives you the ground clearance, gives you stability, and it's not wasteful as much in mass because it's just one engine. I have to have it limited. I mean, I don't have to have it limited because there's a lot of mass on this ship, but then again, it also has a lot of fuel. However, a lot of the videos that I watch of him flying them, he's running all the engines all the time and doesn't actually use much aerodynamic lift. And I wanted something that I could shut down the lifter engine and fly like a plane. So this is what I built based on his designs, and it works. It's not the most stable. I mean, whenever I try to land one of these as a plane, more times than not, it ends up being an explosion. So I was thinking about it, and I was thinking to myself, how can I use structural components to have a single mid-engine lifter? So I'll show you kind of how I did that. We of course start off with our standard cockpit. And I take off all the monopropellant because I'm not going to have any RCS. This is the most basic and easiest one to balance. So I put in one of the intake components and our modular girder section. I'll put in a regular rocket fuel tank because I always use oxidizer to control with the rockets. And here comes the tricky part. So put one of these plates here, kind of mounted high, and we can stick an engine to it. Now, here's the trick. If you pull this off from here, you'll see how it has that forward attachment point, and you can just scoot that right over the girder, and there you go. So you're not clipping through any of the tanks. You have a slightly realistic design because you can have a mid-engine with supports going around where the thrust comes out. And when we put in our pusher engine, we'll find this is fairly well balanced. The center of mass and the center of lift are in fairly good alignment. To finish lining this up and to account for the fact that the fuel empties from here, the weight will go up that way. What I do is I put my control wheel back here. And there we go. This is the basis for most of my VTOLs. You can do little aesthetic things like put wing sections over it so that it doesn't look too bad. And then, you know, build kind of your plane around it, and you'll have a fairly solid little craft. So just that philosophy in mind, I made, this was one of my first ones. This thing flies amazingly well. I mean, as a plane, it's fast, it's maneuverable, you keep it under control. You can do all your stunt maneuvers really low off the ground and not crash. It hovers perfectly. For this much weight, I have it limited to 45%, and that's perfect. I mean, it hovers, and by tapping the engines up and down, I just get it to, you know, just pretty much go exactly where I want it to go. The test that I do of all my VTOLs is I fly them over the other runway, over there, put them in hover mode, and fly in one hangar and out the other. And if I can do that, then I know I have a good controllable VTOL. This one did that so easily, it was just crazy. What I didn't like about it, however, was just this fuel tank means you can't fly for that long. So I have sort of the longer range expanded version. This one has one of the white tanks in front and one of these tanks in the back. This gives a lot more range. Now, one of the limitations of this design that is kind of like built in structurally as part of the plane is I can't just conveniently slide this forward and backward to balance the center of mass. So I have to be careful about what tanks I put where, because that's there. I mean, I have to build around it, kind of like playing dominoes, to keep it balanced. But this one's pretty good. This one doesn't maneuver as well as the Mark 1, of course, being heavier. But it's solid. I love this plane. So I started to play around with this idea even more. Sort of ran with it. Started making crazy stuff. And ended up with this plane. Despite looking weird, I actually like the way it looks. I mean, it's ugly, but cool at the same time. This thing has a lot of lift. These have to be limited so that it hovers. Has a lot of power. It's very heavy. A lot of control wheels. It's very easy to keep this thing going where you want it to go. I've hardly ever lost control of one of these. But seeing how much fuel and engine I could keep in the air with this design, I decided to make an SSTO VTOL. And that's this one. So a lot of you recognize some of the design elements. Again, ripping off Veos like crazy. So I have the air hogging. If you guys watch my SSTO to the moon video, you'll recognize the triple jet engine design, which is very efficient. Here are the control jets. Here are the two lifters. And this is the one that I'm actually going to be flying today. So that's pretty much the portion of the video where I go over the techniques that I'm using. Here comes the showing off part. This is always the long part because I'm going to take this thing into space. So what's the point of a VTOL if you don't take off straight up? So here we go. Lights on, lock the brakes, SAS, stage it. I'm going to turn off the forward firing and the rockets and just keep the lifters going. I'm going to cut off the air intakes so that it stalls out. Again, using that technique Cruzan taught us. Very good. Give it a little while to spin up. And full power. So that's what I love about these kind of planes. I mean, they just hover perfectly. You can control this however you want. But anyway, this is just wasting fuel. So let's power these engines up. Let's get out of here. 6 to shut down the lifters because we're playing now. This thing is powerful enough to fly almost straight up. As before, way more drag than I need. Way more oxygen than I need, so I have them staged independently. Not staged, action grouped independently. 4 shuts down all, 5 shuts down just this block. So right now these are only the 2 that I'm running because that's all I need. And as I go up, I'll open this up. In my last video I was talking about how I was doing this with just 4 intakes, and even I thought it was a little silly because it probably wasn't saving much on that. But on a plane like this, with this many intakes unnecessarily causing drag, I'm probably saving a lot of fuel by doing that. If you guys remember the 3-engine technique, the reason why I like it is because as I'm getting into the really high levels of the atmosphere and I start losing air, first I shut down the center engine. That leaves more than enough fuel to run the 2 outers, and when those start to go a little wonky on me, then I shut those down and just turn on the inside one. This way I keep jet powered thrust, which is by far the most efficient, way up past 30 kilometers, still accelerating, still gaining altitude. I love it how we've gone up like 10 kilometers and are already moving pretty fast, and we're still almost directly above the Kerbal Space Center. These things are more rockets than planes. Alright. So we're losing enough air intake that I'm going to open the rest of them, and there we go. Only putting myself through this much drag because I need it. With 3 engines firing in the thin atmosphere, we're going to pick up massive amounts of speed very quickly, and we can go pretty flat because, the double wing design, giving you all that lift. Jeb's having a good time. That is dark up there, dude. So our intake air is still a great shape. We're still rising really fast and picking up speed like nobody's business. I'll actually get to orbital velocities on jet power. It will probably be right below 40 kilometers, and we'll already be moving at well over 2,300 meters per second at orbital velocity without even firing a rocket engine. Similar technique to this, I'll make in a very short video someday, but I use a similar design to this. Of course, it's not a VTOL, and it doesn't have this type of rockets. These I'm using because this is going to Minmus and back. But I can put a design similar to this into orbit without any rockets at all. I just put in an RCS tank and a couple RCS thrusters, and since I get such a high orbit, such a high apoapsis off jets, you can circularize with a couple of, lengthy RCS burns. Okay, so we can hear the engines are starting to cut out a little bit. So I'm going to Alt right click on both of the outer engines because I want to catch it the second they start to desynchronize as far as thrust. Due to the altitude, we're going to lose a lot of thrust very quickly, and we want to keep that under control. So I want to keep gaining altitude, want to keep gaining speed. Look at, we're already pretty fast. There we go, it desynchronized. It's going to start twisting us soon, so I hit 2 to shut down the center one, leaving only these 2, maximizing the air little air we have for thrust. We're still accelerating, still gaining altitude. I'm going to still keep an eye on these 2, because these are still going to cause us the next problem. Making sure we're still gaining, took the brakes off, making sure we're still gaining altitude and velocity. The good thing is, okay, we're closing in on 2,000 meters per second of surface velocity. Orbital is a lot more. When it switches to orbital, you'll see it'll probably take us to like 2,200. We're fighting Kerbal spin right now, so we're not really seeing what our velocity is going to be, and we're desyncing. Okay. Still acceptable. It's about to get problematic. So shut those down. Fire the inside one. And losing a little bit of velocity while this spins up, but it should be fine. We never started losing altitude though, that's a good thing. Still losing velocity. Come on. You can do it. Okay. And there, we just barely started gaining velocity again. Came down to the wire, to be honest. I can assist a little rocket burn. Okay, so here we're still gaining altitude, or gaining velocity slowly but surely. Our apoapsis should keep gaining more and more and more. There we go. It was pretty close to us before, but now it's starting to gain slowly but surely. The flatter I can fly while still gaining altitude, the better, because that gets me more velocity and we lose less power on steering loss. There we go. So, the altitude and velocity are coming back to us pretty quick. We'll see soon where this shifts to orbital, and we'll see how much faster we really are going in relationship to the center of Kerbal as opposed to the surface of Kerbal. Let's see what happens if we do some physics warping. There we go. Could have been worse. Whoa, whoa! Okay. Anybody know why a perfectly symmetrical plane pulls to the left all the time? Almost everything I build pulls to the left. There we go. Now we're switched to orbital. We are still climbing and picking up speed. You can see our apoapsis is really taking off now. So since we're only running on that center jet, this can stall out. I can't say I particularly care. Not to mention that we have tons of air. Nothing's going to happen if we stall out. So I'm going to run this as long as I can. I probably want to get about 120 kilometer apoapsis, all still using nothing but liquid fuel. There we go. Our orbital velocity is getting to the 2400s. Alright, we're above 100 and we apparently stalled out. Okay, well, that's the wrong end. Yep. So we're gonna drop the throttle till it turns on again. It's not gonna turn on again, okay. There we go. Come on, come on. Not actually getting a lot of velocity from this, but it is what it is. Hopefully it keeps us going up so we end up in space. Apoapsis is in close to 100. Still gaining even with that little bit of throttle. So that's fine. Our altitude is really nice and high. We're about to hit the 60 kilometer mark, after which it's literally it's impossible to get the engines to keep doing anything after that. Yeah. Ooh, at almost zero throttle I can keep it running. Yeah, whatever, this is not gonna work. So we're gonna shut down the engine, close down the intakes completely to minimize drag, point it right at the prograde vector, and coast our way out. So I'm gonna physics warp out to 70, like I did last time. Apple Apps is still perfect. Alright, cue the music. And let's circularize. I'll make the yellow ones 90 degrees from the blue ones. Touchy. That's good enough. I'm gonna hit 3 to turn on the little rocket engines. 18-second burn, okay. 9 before, 9 after. That's time. Accelerate. Now that we're above 70, we don't have to use physics warp, we can use real-time warp. Right. Turn off the engines, 100% throttle, line up on the vector. 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And there we are. So now we are at a very circular orbit around Kerbal in a VTOL with like 3/4 of our fuel left over. So our target for today is Minmus. There you are. Okay, so the ascending node is a little far away. But whatever, I'm not gonna wait. I probably have to meet it part way there. We'll see here. Ah, crappy moon. Don't mess me up. And there she is. Okay, we're gonna come in a little high, but we can correct that in midway. With something with as low a gravity as Minmus, I don't try to really mess with the encounter too much when I'm setting it up here in the node. I'll just, as I'm leaving, burn up, down, left, right, speed up, slow down, do whatever I need to do to make it the most efficient approach possible. For right now, I just want to make sure I actually hit it. Now, where is that Peksky vector? There it is, okay. So let's get our estimate on how much this is actually going to take. 4 minutes, 10 seconds. Okay then. So about 2 minutes, because it normally underestimates. Full throttle. 2-minute burn in 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Since we're already in space and we're burning very, very well balanced thrusters, I can for sure physics warp this without any side effects. If you see the rocket engines, I don't know if this actually makes a difference or not, but I angle these out a little bit so they're not blowing back on the other ones. I've had planes that I didn't do that on still work perfectly fine and efficiently. I don't know. I like to keep some semblance of realism. We see it's actually burning, it's counting down the seconds faster than real time is going. That's why I went a little late. It seems to do that a lot. We want this to end around 2 minutes. Just keep it pointing the right way. I'll take off the physics warp. And let's see how it's looking. Got my finger on the X. There we are. Okay. Something didn't work out here. I think I'm actually overburned. Slow down, you. Just a little bit. Moon, stop it, seriously. There it is, okay. So here we have our Minmus periapsis. We're so far away from it, and it's such a light gravity target that you'll see even like one tiny point of throttle will massively impact our orbit. Getting further. Gonna get it under 1 million. Nope. Okay. So I don't really see very well here, but I think I'm coming in low. No, I'm coming in high and bouncing low. So if I do a southwardly burn, this might get a little closer. Let's see. Yep, a little bit closer. Keep this going up. Nope, losing it now. Okay. Now, I've never really been able to work out which way to do this, but sometimes you get closer if you burn straight down or straight up. We know the burning up, down, prograde or retrograde isn't making any difference now, but there we go. Not anymore. Let's try the other way a little bit. Got under 1 million, but it can't really seem to get under 950,000. So I'll just leave it at 950. Dang it. 958, I guess. Oh well. I'll stop messing with it. So I'm going to time accelerate out to my apoapsis, because that's the other time where tiny little burns will make the biggest difference. It will be so much closer that I'll be able to see that better. So I can time accelerate a lot because it's a long trip. Okay. So I'm going to stop it here. Okay, here I should be able to make adjustments and have better control of what's happening. So let's see if I go prograde. There we go. Getting closer and closer. We're barely using any fuel to do this, so this is good. We're losing it, okay. Still appears I'm coming in really high. So I do a southerly burn and put that right there. I'll be way closer. So find the 180 degrees and burn straight south. There we go. Much better. Okay. That seems to be pretty good. Now we're passing by it on in front, which means we're at the 90-degree vector. So logic would suggest that burning at the 270 would bring us in close. So just the tiniest little burn is getting us a lot closer to Minmus. Probably want to stop this about 20 kilometers if I can get it that close from here. There we go. That is getting funky. 20, there we go, okay, good. Yeah. So my circularization burn is going to be sort of in an upward angle because I don't want it. I don't want a polar orbit. I want an equatorial orbit. But we're really close. And as you guys maybe saw by doing our adjustment out here where we're almost standing still. I mean, our orbital velocity around Kerbal, so they're so far away, is 40 meters per second. I have buggies that travel faster than that. But we're so far away from Kerbal that that's all we need to stay out there. Doing these little burns here where we have such little velocity to overcome allows us to have massive changes in trajectory with almost no fuel used. I mean, seriously, I wish I'd have kept track, but all that to bring this apoapsis from 1,000,000 kilometers down to 20, if I use 10 units of fuel, it's a ton. So here we go. There comes Minmus. And we have an encounter. Okay, great. Now, due to our inclination, we're glancing high and flying off to nowhere. So my circularization burn is going to not only flatten us a little bit, but also slow us down. Okay. So let's see. First of all, despite what the periapsis might be, I probably want to do this burn close to Minmus's equator. So I'm not going to do it so high. I'm going to do it like here. Then I'm going to decelerate. And flatten. This is always a pain in the butt. Okay. Go over a little bit. Alright. Periapsis is 44. Let's get the apoapsis down to about the same. That's not what I wanted to do. 45, 22, sheesh. Are we flat anyway? No, not really. 45, 33. I'm gonna call that good enough. 48-second burn. In about 2 hours, 48 seconds, half is 24. I'm in here, shut down the engines. Time accelerate out to 24. Whoa! Okay. Time acceleration, keeping things exciting as usual. I just passed it. Waiting to be by the equator and already messed up. Okay, great. It'll be okay, guys. Alright, we should have some kind of orbit. Alright, good. 48, 35, that's great. Alright, preferred landing spot is always right here. This is my favorite Minmus landing spot. I always like to, and actually the eccentricity of this orbit is pretty cool because of that. Because if you come in right on the equator, then you'll run into that. But if you go a little bit higher, a little bit lower, you have this much extra space to work with. And I'm actually at a pretty good area, pretty close to doing my descent burn to end up right there. Now here's the deal. I never put a node right on the ground because of this mountain range. This mountain range keeps things exciting. So I'm going to make sure that I'm clearing it according to the node. And I'll just do my braking maneuver after here and just put it right down. So 2-second burn in about 2 minutes. I love Minmus. I mean, such low gravity that almost no burn at all gets you what you need to do. Not going to time accelerate past my node like last time. And that should be it. I think I just accidentally opened the intakes. Yep. As if it made any difference. Okay. Not cool. Okay. Let's try not to crash. Alright. Wow, really? That was a complete waste of fuel, but here we go. Enough with the nodes, let's just do this by eye. Okay. Alright, there we go. So I'm going to keep this thing on the prograde vector. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my thumb on the space bar so that if I have to dodge a mountain by flying up, I can just activate those engines. Can keep her throttled up and not lose any acceleration by just, holding down Alt, hitting the period, and using our physics warp. But actually not yet, we're still pretty high. If you guys hate this side of the view as much as I do, just hit V to go back to free cam. And there is our sinister mountain. I just normally eyeball this, so if I point the plane directly at the prograde vector and then I look down the plane, I see that I'm heading straight over it still. I point the other way. This still lets me burn straight up if I need to for some reason, but I'm gonna brake soon, so... Let's point right at that vector. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not liking this. Actually rising now according to this, so we're in pretty good shape. Should clear this pesky mountain. It's never a good thing to see lights on the ground when you're not supposed to be landing yet. And there's our landing spot. So, mountain range cleared. Crisis averted. Let's start braking. I'm just keeping myself at full throttle, and I'm just, you know, toggling the engines on and off. 3 for the forward firing ones, spaced for the upward firing ones. That's pretty good there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Still a little physics warping. Let's put that gear down. And let's brake. Alright. So here's the cool thing about having a VTOL in space. I just switch to control from here so that I'm looking at everything from straight up and down. Now I can just spacebar my way down slowly. Probably don't want to go too far over 30. Okay, should be seeing the lights on the ground pretty soon. There they are. I'll be going about 10. There's my shadow. And like a feather. Alright. So that's how to fly an SSTO VTOL to Minmus. Anybody who's flown to Minmus knows that that's like 3 times more fuel than I need to get back. So in the efforts of cutting this video short, I will just leave it right here. Thank you guys very much for watching. And thank you to the people that have subscribed to my channel recently. It's very encouraging when someone like myself with no editing or production value whatsoever can get subscribers. Thank you guys very much for watching, and see you next time.